so before we started streaming, Sam started talking about some of the things that Trump tweeted out after the Twitter files part 1. Oh my God, it's a doozy. No, if you can't tell, I'm being entirely sarcastic here, people. There is nothing in that file that is anything really. But you know, Trump read it and he's like, "Oh my God, they stole the election from me." Because of course he's going to say that. But Sam, you had an interesting theory about that I want to hear more about it.
Well. So first of all, I do think that the Twitter files are interesting. I mean, there's not a lot of substance there. I mean, it's interesting because it's good. I think it's good that the public gets to see behind the scenes how the political system is interacting with the press, and this is exactly how all political actors have dealt with all press actors since the mass media started existing in the 19th century and the 20th century. Politicians have tried to make journalists publish what they want and not publish what they don't want them to do, and that's it's from time immemorial. So the thing that's happening right now is the veil is being lifted from how business is actually done, and always has been done, and probably always will be. And so I'm really glad to see that. Hold on, my daughter wants to put popcorn in the microwave, but I think you get the point. This is interesting. However, it's not. There's not like a lot of news here or like gasp revelations. Only if you really didn't understand how the system worked to begin with, and the addition of social media as a new source for the journal, as like a new method through which people are trying to like corral journalists is interesting, and it's interesting that there's a track record here. Both parties are doing it; they're doing a good job of it, and I wonder whether they're going to have a harder time with it now moving forward. That'll be cool if that happens.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true to an extent. Like, I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's just because I'm super not involved in politics, but super hyper aware of things in politics that this doesn't any news to me. It's not like Twitter is only taking ideas or not even Twitter, like any major news organization. Every major news organization, every social media platform has to have access in order to be able to do what they do. You need to have access in order for people to come onto your platform and use it. You need to have access in order to get interviews, that sort of thing, right? This happens across the entire political spectrum, across the board, even with celebrities and football stars, etc., right? So nobody's going to do anything that like super pisses them off, and they'll do like some back rubs. You'll be like, hey, that thing that you said or whatever, I'll be off record, what have you, right? I think that everybody should have been aware of that. And I don't see how people can like look at this and be like, oh my God, that's new information. And at the same time, like what Matt Taibbi had said in his tweets was like, hey, both Democrats and Republicans had this connection here, right? And they said Team Trump was asking for things to be looked at, and Team Biden was too. But look, Twitter is like super biased towards Democrats. Look at how much money their employees donated to Democrats. So that they favor Democrats, right? And right after that, there's like, he says, hey, look, there is this email that we have of Team Biden asking Twitter to take care of some tweets or look into them, right? He didn't blur out the tweet URLs. So everybody could have gone in and looked up what those tweets were in the Wayback Machine. I did that after somebody pointed that we could do that out. We could do that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So I used an internet program to like pull the text off of the image, and it went to Wayback Machine. Every single one of those tweets that was quote unquote taken care of was of Hunter Biden's dick. and I looked at that, and then I looked at Matt Taibbi. I looked at Tim Pool. I looked at all these other right-wing grifting fucks, and I'm like, you didn't even check. Not only does this break the law in several states, under either revenge porn or violation of consent with nudity laws because he didn't put them up there. But it's also like against Twitter's toss. And all that this did was that because they're like quote unquote connected, they just got it. They went to the front line of like looking at if it violated toss. And every single one of those people were like, this shows that they interfered with the election. And then Tucker Carlson's like, I'm going to interview freaking James Woods about how his tweet was taken down too. Turns out it was a blurry image of Hunter Biden's dick again.
Maybe Tucker Carlson can interview Hunter Biden's dick.
Yeah, right? maybe they can.
So Hunter Biden's dick was silenced by Twitter.
It was hard to silence because that thing's massive. I'm not even gonna lie.
All right, so the other thing that I had been saying before that I think it's important to communicate is that what this is it's really there's not a lot of substance here, right? And as you pointed out, so what's actually happening is the battle lines are being drawn, and there's no space any longer for people to be neutral or be like an arbiter of journalism. People have to choose sides, and Matt Taibbi has chosen his side. He's consciously doing that. I'm not saying, I'm not labeling him. He's decided. He said, you know what? I guess I'm going to just align myself with the Republicans, because he wouldn't be able to do this right now if he weren't. He wouldn't be able to publish the type of tweets that you have to bend over a really far way in order to justify to yourself the type of stuff that he just did, right? He didn't scrutinize this. He didn't apply journalistic practices. So if you're going to do that, you're basically just a mouthpiece. Like you're just a mouthpiece. You're a mouthpiece for the Republican Party, and it's a conscious choice that's being made here on purpose to align yourself with one political party or another political party, and Elon Musk is doing that for sure, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for him too. So we're seeing an alignment, and it's not even necessarily a partisan alignment long term. It's an alignment with which political side is going to win the culture war, and I don't know that it's necessarily smart to get involved in the culture war unless you're going to be drawn in. Whether you want to or not. So it makes me suspicious whenever I see people jumping into the fray proactively like this, because it makes me think that they're compromised in some way, and they have to, or else who in their right mind would get themselves involved in this, knowing that, number one, it doesn't actually have an effect on anything. The culture war, right. It doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters to the future of the nation. Right, the future of the nation is not at stake with the culture war. The future of a few minorities who are have their livelihoods and lives at stake. And other than that, it's just about which set of elites get to control the country. There's two sets of elites. Both of them want control and want to shove the other set of elites out. Either way, you're going to end up with a set of elites who are lording over everyone else. And it's 100% about colonization. The elites are trying to colonize, and that's what the culture war is about. On both sides. It's not like, I hear a lot of conservatives say that there is that the left is trying to use race to divide, and I'm absolutely certain that quote unquote progressive elites are definitely doing that. And I also am making the case that conservative elites are doing exactly the same thing. They're saddling up people and riding them like beasts of burden in this war to see who's going to end up in positions of power. That's it.
I mean, sure, but I feel like this, I don't know, it seems like it might matter more to me than it does. I mean, okay, to be clear, I understand that you're saying in the grandest of time scales, like hundreds of years, this doesn't matter. Today's cultural fight is won or lost. In 100 years, no one's going to care about it. But not really. I don't know. Like if say Jim Crow never ended, right?
It matters to trans people. I'm spending my time trying to help organize trans people to protect themselves from what's coming, because that's whose lives are actually at stake. Everybody else, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All the people who think that, all the like rich liberals who are like, well, we're losing our democracy. Guess what? You're going to end up with a nice house, a nice career. College education is not going to go away as a credentialing process, no matter what the conservatives try to do, and you're going to be fine. And conservatives who think that they're losing their culture in their country, and they think that that the left is destabilizing our culture, is dragging Western society down or whatever, they're like so wrong. It's like not even relevant. So it's all a delusion, basically. On behalf of the people who have nothing at stake, the people who have something at stake are the people who are vulnerable, immigrants, trans people. Yeah, I could keep naming groups, but you get the idea.
Right.
Okay, look at Sam here playing the universal populist role. Well done, sir.
I don't know, Tyler. What do you think?
Getting a pushback from my real question is, and I know this is going to be a level of bias, but the question is all right, what does the country look like when one of these groups win? Because sooner or later one of them is probably going to, right? So what happens if the right wing wins? What happens if the left wing wins? And then actually, real question, what happens if it just kind of turns into a draw, which may actually happen?
Well, it depends. Are we going to get synthesis, or are we going to get outright war? I don't know. I think there's a budding group of quote unquote radical centrists that are more or less coming together to a certain degree. And I think that overall, when it comes to the culture war, they'll probably be the ones that end up winning, simply because I think that even the extremes on both sides realize that they're making reasonable points to one degree or another. But if the groomer talk keeps going and more people start dying, well, I don't know. I think you'll see more pushback, and that's going to cause more problems. And when I say pushback, I mean, queer people arming themselves and taking to the streets with that, and their allies, because that's the natural conclusion of people being murdered, is people are going to end up arming themselves to protect themselves when the state fails to do so.
Hey, I am not opposed to minorities having guns. Just saying.
I mean, you know what, the state, the minorities will be armed to. I can't remember the quote actually. So, but yeah, I agree. I'm not against gun ownership. I am against people that think red flag laws shouldn't exist outright. I'm against stuff like that. I'm more for quote unquote sensible gun regulations. But I'm not going to tell people they can't own an AR-15 necessarily.
Are we going to see a Rainbow Panther party?
A Rainbow Panther party?
Party?
No, can we get that going again? Because that was pretty cool. My God. That was dope.
I love you guys.
What it was the pink triangles, right? That's what their group was called.
Yeah, but they weren't armed. They were political organizers in San Francisco.
Oh, okay. They weren't armed. I thought they might have been armed.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about the history.
Fair enough. But no, I think, like I said, I think that people will end up arming themselves, and that's going to just potentially lead to more chaos. So I am concerned about it. I really am. But what about this Trump stuff though? How he responded to that?
The radical right is now acting like the radical left, and they're all fighting each other. It's actually quite enjoyable.
Hey, can I just make one more point about the future before we move on? So I think that again, everything balances out in the long term. So in the short term, it does matter a great deal who wins. But it's but everybody, the vast majority of the country is going to end up just living their lives in general, regardless of how this turns out. So that's the stakes I was talking about. Is that it's not gonna make a huge difference to 80 to 90% of the population, right? But it does matter, and what I'm saying is that what's going to happen is, which I think one of the other side is going to win. I don't think that we're going to have a long continued draw forever. And when one of the two sides wins, what happens next is the other side goes underground, and they're going to end up being the foundation for the next rebellion against the conformity that's coming. And so it just keeps on continuing on, boomerang back and forth. And right now we're seeing the boomerang of the conservatives, and that's my belief. And then we're going to see the boomerang of the progressives later on in the century. That'll be the end of it. Or not the end. It'll be like, that's the point, is it's not the end. Maybe then the conservatives will boomerang it around again.
It'll be the next stage.
Yeah. When do we want to point that the right wing started to rise, though? I think that's important to understand the time frames, because usually if these things go generationally, we're talking what, 20, 30 years before
it's a long it's the left won in the 30s, and so we've seen ever since then, we've seen the right try to unravel the left's
that's from an economic standpoint, right?
Growth. Yeah, I'm saying
cultural.
I'm saying that Reagan, everything that we've ever lived through in our lives has been part of that boomerang, and we're witnessing the end of the New Deal. This is the end of the New Deal. Is what I'm saying.
So since Reagan,
back down from the zenith of the New Deal. That's what we're saying.
Since Reagan, or maybe Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon was the start of it. I was there.
Okay, but from a cultural perspective, people were still pretty much on the same page, more or less, up until. I guess Nixon was that too, because that's when all the civil rights protests started, and then, okay, yeah, interesting.
You know, it's funny because every time I talk to left wingers on this, they're like, "Excuse me, the right's ascending, the right's doing well, the right's kicking ass." Every time I talk to the right wing, they're like, "Oh, the left fucking owns everything and they control everything and they're winning," and oh my god. I think there's some levels where both sides have actually just picked up wins. The right has picked up wins, and when it comes to like just general state legislatures and shit, they've got it, right? They put in the work. They've done very well when it comes to states. When it comes to like a federal narrative, though, and like the nation as a whole, left has a lot going for them. They've got academia. They do have the media to the large degree. Yeah, I think there's a knock down, drag out fight kind of coming here. We're actually already here, but yeah.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah, it's been here.
The question is, what's going to win over the next decade? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really came to salience, though, to be honest, with Obergefell and Gamergate. I think that's when it came into salience, at least for the cultural war.
Gamergate.
Yeah.
Gamergate.
All right, someone has to explain to me why Gamergate was just so absolutely earth-shattering, because either I'm not aware of something or I've missed something.
Because it was the beginning of the millennials and Gen Z conservatives coming back from their like total nadir of like the Obama years, basically, when like 90% of millennials were pro-Obama. And it was them clawing back. And in addition to that, it also, if you look at the tactics that are being used right now by Trump and Kanye, also, I mean, the Kanye stuff is all part of this too. This is just the logical extension of Gamergate. It's a lot of the same people, same tactics, same groups of people, same content creators are all involved in this, and their descendants, right? And ever since Gamergate, there's been a huge audience on YouTube for the right. Huge, so big. If you look at like all the content creators on YouTube, it's like if you just were like put a graph up of the online audiences, of the size of the audiences for right-wing content creators versus left-wing, it's like 10-1 for conservatives. It's crazy huge on YouTube. So that's why it's.
Yeah, and also these people were specifically targeted by people like Steve Bannon for radicalization, because you're talking about a group of disaffected young men that had an outlet for, whatever, like feeling like they are accomplishing something through video games and competitive play, etc., right? And you have a person come in and be like, hey, the stuff that you're enjoying, well, there might be problems with it. And no one wants to hear that shit, right? No one likes to self-examine, to examine the media that they like. They just want to be able to enjoy it. And that pissed a lot of people off. And the people want to say this was like integrity in media and game journalism or whatever. It's bullshit. It was a lover's quarrel. The guy basically got dumped and started to like air out the dirty laundry on there. And it wasn't anything nefarious when it comes to that sort of stuff. But it was all used. I don't remember the guy's name. But I think it was not Zoe. Was it Zoe? The woman that created the indie game that got a lot of good press in like Kotaku and stuff.
I'm not sure.
If that's who you're talking about, then yes, it was Zoe.
Yeah, Win, right?
I'm not sure. What I do know, just from my own perspective, I don't remember
the guy's name, but based on the context clues you gave, yes, Zoe is the right.
Zoe Quinn, yeah, Zoe Quinn, yeah. There we go.
But going to your question, it was also Gamergate revealed something to the general public that was, for the most part, unbeknownst to them due to the fact that games were kid shit. So they ignored everything about it as kid shit. That was a small caveat I needed to add because it was the only thing that was ignored.
Totally
ignore
true.
Your own power.
It's totally true because nobody except gamers really, and general internet nerds, because all the internet nerds came together on Gamergate, right? Were on forums like 4chan up until Gamergate blew up. That journalists didn't go there. 4chan was literally crafting the entire narrative of like every single funny meme that exists on the internet, circa 2004 to like today. Honestly, a lot of the memes still come out of 4chan. Different areas, not entirely anymore, but it was at that time. And then you had other forums like Something Awful from the Goon Squad, and there was a smattering of like game forums here and there where people were just basically being outright openly sexist, hostile pieces of shit, and also Nazis. And whenever you have Nazis enter an area that isn't policed, they end up taking it over. And the reason they end up taking it over is because they're willing to actually commit violence against people they dislike. So they'll go on coordinated harassment campaigns. They'll go on, they'll dox you. They'll show up in the case of Kiwi Farms. They'll show up to your actual house and be like, "Look,
we don't even have to
Oh,
go to Kiwi Farms. We can look at individuals like Keemstar.
Yeah.
Keemstar organized hate campaigns against people to the point where people actually committed suicide due to the harassment, where he was sending pictures of their parents' house to them, saying that they have friends out. Yeah, the shit happened. You go look up the shit that went around Keemstar.
I didn't know about Keem. I didn't know that about Keem. He's a new person to me. So.
Oh no, he's been around. He's been around being a piece of shit for years and years. Like the harassment campaign against Brandon Basher was ridiculous. Like, he actually sent Brandon pictures of his mother's home that he had followers go and take.
Ridiculous.
I can't speak to some of this because it's a little over my head. Gamers are some of my favorite people, but they're also some of my least favorite people. And if anyone's a gamer, you may understand that, because like I'm a high functioning gamer. Let's just be honest with this, all right? So the problem is that there's a lot of gamers out there that I like because, I'm part of that community, but there's also a level where I'm like, yo, dude, you are sexist as hell. Like, it's true. I'm not going to act like they're not. A lot of them are...
they're the ones that need to get laid. Yeah.
It's not as bad as it used to be, but these are a lot of people who are like socially discontent, right? These are a lot of dudes who got pushed out or got pushed to the fringe of society. And it sucks. It absolutely sucks.
No, they didn't get pushed. They pushed themselves. See, that's part of the problem.
Dude.
No. In modern day, gamer culture is accepted. We are no longer the fringe. We have fucking esports teams in the military, for fuck's sake. No, gamers push themselves to the side with their shitty, fucking misogynistic, negative views.
We need to talk about time frames here, though, right? So prior to about 2012, we can say 2012. I don't know when the exact first esport game came out, but I think 2012 is around the time we can say it got big. Prior to that, it's anything between 1990 and like 2006. Most people that played games online were nerds. They were disaffected young men looking for an outlet to feel important. That's why WoW blew up. That's why you had all these people going through min-maxing every single thing they can do about their World of Warcraft character and post it online so they can feel like some sort of achievement, right? That's why a lot of people do that.
Paltry and false sense of control.
Exactly. And I can attest to that because when I was in my bout of depression, I latched onto a game called Darkfall. And if anybody knows what Darkfall is, Jackenard's laughing here, so I think he knows, understands why you could feel important playing that game. I was one of the most hated people in that game. Not because I was good, but because I was so bad in trying to change the game. But it gave me a sense to feel like I was actually accomplishing something. I was spying on different guilds and stuff. It was great.
It was like social commentary at hyperspeed is what Darkfall was.
It really was. And the reason he's laughing though is because, and I'm not going to say what my name is, but there was a sub forum on Darkfall called Off Topic. And that is where I was exposed to a lot of this BS because I was there before the game came out, not trolling it, but figuring out information. I was there and on Tucker Max's forum, figuring out things as a disaffected young man that doesn't know what to do after being dumped by their first girlfriend. And I saw the evolution of this go from people who were like, yeah, work on yourself, be a good guy, whatever. Hey, politics is interesting. Maybe you should look up Stephen Molyneux. Maybe you should look up these people. I'm like, okay, let me look up these people. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And fast forward to like 2012, I'm just like, these people are insane. And that's when I stopped.
Yeah, and I'll give you that. There was a tipping point. And that's why I say modern times. Gaming is a very prevalent part of the culture. We have people making millions of dollars doing it. That are accepted household names.
Oh yeah,
like my mother, who has never set foot on Twitch, knows who fucking Kit Boga is.
I don't even know
how. I don't know this, but she said the name to me. I'm like, how the fuck do you know who that is? So it's like, yeah, these have become, and Soda Poppin' or whatever that dude's name is, the one who sits and like fishes when he's not gaming. Like, she'll watch these people on, like, fucking YouTube shorts and stuff. And I'm like, Ma, these are the people you used to tell me to avoid, like, the plague when you saw me and Dad playing on the computers. And you are now talking about them like they're normal celebrities. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, that tipping point, I don't know if I'd put it as late as 2012. I'd honestly put it a little earlier. I'd put it during the housing crisis, because during the housing crisis of 2008 is when Diablo 2 and EverQuest were really hitting hard, and that's when gaming culture started to become more commonplace in nomenclature, to the point where you could talk to a non-gamer and they'd be like, "Oh, that's cool. Let me go see let me go see you play. What do you have? What armor do you have?" They don't play, but they knew the games. So I'd put it a little bit earlier before esports, but esports is definitely the hyper speed point.
Yeah.
I just used esports because it's the easiest one that everybody fucking knows about, rather than listing specific teams that compete in non-esports competition video games. Because that's a thing now too. And that's all I'm getting at, Ty, is nowadays, these people don't have an excuse for being pushed to the fringes of society other than their own shitty takes.
Okay, so I don't think that these folks were normalized all that long ago. Like, I get that gaming's become a lot more prevalent, but there's definitely, like, old vestiges of what I would call gamer culture versus, like, new gamer culture, because it got bigger, right? And to some degree, I fucking hate it, because we've seen a lot of fucking losers get into gaming, and quite frankly, they suck at gaming, and they make it to where the community has it's full of raunchy and shitty games. Sorry, I'm going to rage here for a
What?
second. But
I know what he's talking about. He's talking about the over saturation of the gaming industry, of people pushing to market as quickly as possible, to the point where we are now alpha and beta testing these games for them for free, or paying for the luxury of doing so.
I actually like that part. I like the user feedback. What I don't care for is, just as an example, I'm playing Victoria 2 as I'm streaming this right now. Victoria 3 just came out. And what Victoria 3 did, what Hearts of Iron 4 did, a lot of these newer games, particularly by anyone who is now a prominent developer, is they keep going to the status mean. And I get that, like, it's making them money. I'm not acting like it's not. Like, they're going after these newer gamers who are like, I'm here for the memes, I'm here for the dreams. But they suck. They're fucking retards. It's the same thing that's going on in the movie industry. It really is that the quality keeps going down and down and down because we keep having more people who are like movie aficionados, or at least if you want to put it this way, they actually go to the movies more because they want to spend time with their family. They want to spend time, having fun with their friends, and that's great. But they have no respect for what actually a decent movie is. We've got the same problem with gamers, and that they have no idea what a decent game is.
Sounds like elitism.
I'm fucking elitist as hell. Come on, let's not act like we don't know that.
Man. So can I just give some perspective here? So first of all, I disagree that these people did this to themselves. I don't think you can ever take any one person in isolation. I'm a huge believer that the idea of personal responsibility, while real, is also bullshit. You can always do something to make your life better, but humans are basically just computers. There's stimulus comes in and shit is pumped out, and we're all unique. So what gets pumped out is unique based on all of us, right? Our unique makeup. But we all have more in common than we have differences, and so therefore, generally, you can make generalizations about how humans behave when they're put under certain stimulus, pressure, encouragement, whatever So there is, if there's a group of men out there who have been isolated, I'm very uncomfortable saying that they've done it to themselves, because there's something at work that's doing that to them, or else you wouldn't see such huge numbers of people affected that way.
Yeah,
that's one thing.
Their opinions. I was saying their opinions, not they are self-isolating. It is their opinions that are causing the isolation, no longer the gamer stigma. That's
true. That's true. They're choosing to go down a dark path on purpose. I've seen forum posts where there's now a culture around being a bad person on purpose. You got to embrace being a bad person.
There's people who take fucking pride in getting banned and timed out through chats across platforms. And that's what I'm getting at. It is their bad takes that have isolated them, not they've chosen to isolate themselves. It is not the gamer stigma anymore that is stigmatizing them. Now they have revealed themselves to be shitbags.
So can I give a little more perspective here? Sorry, Ty, just one more thing, okay? So thank you. So there's a reason why all this stuff is happening, and the reason is that we've seen a push to maximize corporate profit. And I know this is it's hilarious because I'm a guy on the left, so of course I'm saying that, right? But it's not capitalism that's to blame. It's the era that we're in with the demographic. It's low interest rates. It's low interest rates playing out over decades, and what that does is it's driving companies to want to. Companies are under pressure to make money because we're in a situation where the expectations are sky high, and so this is all going to go away, and it's going to go away when the expectations of high profits from investors are broken for the rest of our lifetimes. We will know there's going to be a point at which very, very, very soon at which expectations for profits will be dashed permanently from the perspective of people who are currently alive. And when that happens, all this stuff is going to go away. And so,
I have to disagree. I just don't think it's going to happen in this rapid time frame, nor do I believe it should, due to
Stick with it
historical and
as individuals.
anthropological
It has
truths.
to, and it has to be with our kids to solve this, to resolve all the trauma, because a lot of us are going to be scarred by this for a long, long time.
Yeah, Sam, what I'm getting at though is this. Um, yeah, I agree that that will happen. My disagreement very heavily is on the time frame and the expectation of that time frame. Rapid change in the way that you were talking about will lead to the power vacuum that the non-revolutionary leftists want to avoid, because we understand it's that power vacuum that causes the issue. How do we transition from line must go up, which is a perspective that has been in this country for the last 85 years? How do
The
we
line
prevent
must.
that? How do we? I'm being very hyperbolic, but
It's going to happen by itself because demographics are the number, like far and away, it's like 80% determinative of GDP growth. And the demographics are going away, which means that we're going to see negative growth.
we're
Starting
going
as
to see shift to growth that would be of higher exploitation.
Globally. And so at a certain point, those expectations have to meet with reality, which is that we're going to have negative growth for the rest of our lives. So it's just about people's minds catching up with reality at this point.
Thing is that won't happen, because what will happen is first world countries will just up the exploitation factor to maintain the perception. I mean, this is what I'm getting at. I don't think it will happen nearly as quickly as you're talking about. I'm not saying you're wrong in that it will happen. I'm just thinking that your time frame is a little too condensed.
Right. You're saying that that the powers that be still have a lot of cards to play, and they can do it for decades.
And the thing is, they are also meeting populist demands in certain respects. I was actually having this conversation last night about, there are certain things that we can't wait on, climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the thing. Funnily enough, capitalism is actually starting to solve this, because the populist will is changing so much. They're pushing more towards green energy. They're pushing now to the point where 15 of 20 major car manufacturers worldwide have dedicated a time to switching solely to EVs before 2040. 15 of 20 are before 2040. That was an unthinkable prospect even 10 years ago. And it is actually capitalist interests that are pushing this. So they are actually meeting populist demand because they understand that the market demands it. So that's why I'm saying they are adapting to this new landscape just like we are as leftists, and that is going to stretch us out. And me being an incrementalist believes it should be stretched out, because the more rapid the change, the higher probability of leading into a power vacuum that leads into vanguardism, which leads us right back to where we fucking started.
Excellent points, and I'd love to have a more full conversation to suss them out a little bit, but I don't want to dominate this with this discussion.
No, but I'm just saying, it's just a little bit. I think it's going to be longer, and I think it needs to be longer to prevent that upheaval.
My question is whether anyone really has control. I basically think that after working in the government for years, that all control is an illusion, and nobody actually.
Well, okay. The thing is you were talking about individuals having control, and if that is your point, I would absolutely
policy. No matter how powerful the policy lever you're pulling, it's still weak compared with the fundamentals.
I think you broke up there. What was that after fundamentals? You kind of like silenced out there. Fundamentals.
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying that that policymakers have no tools that can make any measurable impact in the long term, that on any variable that isn't completely overpowered by just the actions of humans on a massive scale. They're basically powerless over the long term, no matter how powerful the lever of policy you're pulling.
Well, see,
There
but
is
that's
no
because you're thinking one-step thinking. These are multi-step and multifaceted actors. They are not just pulling the policy lever. They're also pushing social commentary, hiring think tanks, hiring fucking PR firms to analyze how it's being reacted to and manipulate their message further. This is not a single-step game theory anymore. This is the problem with thinking about this in ivory tower principles is we end up starting to isolate variables that are so interconnected that they become confounding variables on other parts of the equation.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I'd love to have more of this conversation, but I feel like we're gonna just keep talking here for a long time because what you're saying is really great, and I want to hear more.
Yeah, and another time for sure. And I'm sure Ty will set up another night where we can go over this in mass. But I think it's going to take longer because of the multifaceted thing. That's my primary disagreement, and I think that's something that all of us can get on without having to go into these nuances.
Yeah, that's true. It could be. I don't know when this is going to happen. It could be a lot longer than you think. That's true.
I don't know, Ty. Do you agree with me that it should be slower? I mean, I think you agree that it will be, but do you think it should be?
Okay, question. If it should be, yes. Will it be? Actually, that's the one I'm not 100% on. But, like, here's the thing with me. Like, I'm more right-wing than y'all. And, like, the thing that I kind of, like, have pushed for is that, like, I don't believe that we're going to Star Trek. Just blatantly. Like, I don't believe that's where we're going. I don't think that's remotely, like, even an option. So, like, I actually kind of want to go back, in some regards, not socially, but more economically, about 100 years, and actually, like, take a different path. And I'll rephrase it this: I think social welfare, to a large degree, is a joke. I think we need to have a serious conversation about, like, investment opportunities when it comes to, like, government interventionism. Like, all right, railroads and roads are pretty fucking good. Maybe we do healthcare because just the law of large numbers really is true, but Social Security is a fucking disaster. Food stamps is literally something that you should figure out in your basic budgeting. Like, if you're not paying for your food, you're fucked. Like, yeah, that's the thing with me. Like, I literally kind of want to. I'm weird because, like, I don't have a lot of problem with, like, a lot of the social movements that we've had in the last 60, 70 years, but pretty much a lot of the economic lessons that have been drawn post World War II, I think, are all fundamentally fucked up, and they're going to lead to a very, very painful future.
Can you point to a specific one that because you went back to the 20s essentially by this century back, so this is before the New Deal. Where in the 20s do you think we made the mistake?
Well, unironically, if you want the American example, it is the New Deal, because some of it was very, very prosperous, but some of it was horrible. So shit like TVA, I think, was incredibly productive. Actually building out the infrastructure that allowed people to have power in Tennessee and a lot of these places that eventually would literally lead to the Manhattan Project. Hoover Dam, obviously, for Vegas, and a few others. But when it comes to, like, WPA, which is the Works Projects Administration, I don't know how familiar all with this is. A lot of these things were just literally spending money to spend money. And while people absolutely got the right, I'll put it this way. FDR's big thing was that even though technically by every metric, the New Deal didn't really help, in fact, it may have even hurt, is that the American people believed that their government wasn't completely inept. And what it did is it gave people confidence that, hey, our system does work and that it is going to work for us. And because of that, we didn't have a communist or revolution, or we didn't turn to fascism, both of which were options, right? So I think we all agree with that. The problem is that
I'm not a communism I would have wanted as a communist, so I'm glad we didn't.
Yeah. So number one, in my opinion, is that all of these things should have been temporary, and most of them are not. The New Deal largely is still with us, particularly under Social Security. It's been expanded 3 times now. We have a serious conversation about social welfare, to where whether it's the child, what is it, the child tax credit, now being just actually just a payment, things like this. I get it. Like, it makes you feel good as the guy who's getting it because it makes your bills a little easier to pay. But these are not growth structures. They are maintaining structures. Maintaining structures aren't worth a fucking shit for me. So, yeah, and particularly, like, when I look at Europe, I think they really went off the rails with this kind of shit. But that's my thoughts. It's like, look, like, I know some people don't like DoD spending, but it's literally America's research and development fund. It's literally what it fucking is. When it comes,
would argue
And a
DARPA
jobs
specifically,
program.
but yeah. I would say DARPA specifically over DoD, but the rest I agree with.
yeah. So like shit like that, I think the interstate program was literally the best thing that this country ever did. You know, it was $500 billion in spending adjusted for inflation, but it literally made it to where trucking is out competing trains. Like, holy shit!
No. See, that's where we're going to disagree.
Okay.
Because I'm very much a trains guy.
Oh, I am too.
So,
That's my argument, though, is that we put in the infrastructure to where trucks, overall, except for fuel efficiency and per ton mile revenue.
See, this is where I think we went wrong, and we're pointing to the same time period, even the same exact fucking issue, but from a totally different perspective, because that's where the culture of union breaking came in.
I'll put it this way. Early union breaking,
that was specifically to break the railroad unions that we were building these interstate highways to facilitate the truckers to give us an option so that the union didn't have any power.
No, wait. I love you on this one. There's a level where it's true and there's a level where it's not, right? So let me break that
being
down.
Hyperbolic to a point, but yeah,
a little bit, but yeah, I do know where you're going, and there's a little bit of reality there. There was 1,000 reasons why somebody wanted to fund the interstate program, which is hilarious because it came back to bite us in the ass in some regards, not only because of climate change and actually fuel efficiency and what have you, but also is that literally, 10 years later, as the interstate's getting built, the Teamsters Union, which was a trucking union, ends up going full fucking tilt, and you have Jimmy Hoffa and the whole 9 yards, right? So my whole shtick, if you want it, on this particular regard, it simply boils down to this. The problem that the United States has is that we have really categorically de-emphasized investment, and now we just do a lot to maintain, and we only fix something when it's fucking broke, and never actually like pre-plan and pre-fix. Now, granted, that's helped us out on a few times.
I'll give you a reactionary. Yeah, that's like a perfect assessment of our problem. But I just think it's different as to the overall causes.
Like, there's a lot of reasons. I think everyone kind of points the correct or has the correct idea when they point out everything, because it is a little bit of everything. There's a lot of economic interests. There's a lot of political interests, right? But this country, in my opinion, does really fucking good when it actually gives itself a mission and says we're going here. Whether it's a space race of the 60s, whether it is, actually building the interstate program, or actually, unironically, helping build the internet, a lot of these things panned out when we actually invest and look forward to something. I'm hoping that Artemis actually ends up kind of revitalizing the American spirit a little bit, because good God, this country has no idea.
I actually agree. As much as I hate Musk, I agree. The thing is I think part of it is you will blame one union but not the other. You will not show that the union breaking culture was actually facilitated by the Teamsters Union once they were infiltrated by organized crime. I mean, there's more to it than these finite talking points, and that's part of the problem with doing these debates. Unless we're doing really deep dives into specific topics, we have to be brief. That's what I'm getting. I think you and I agree primarily that, except for on one point, you don't care about maintenance. Maintenance is absolutely an essential part. What I agree with you on is that we need to stop being so reactionary and be more proactive in our application of intention. Because I won't say policy, because these will always go back and forth, but application of intention. I do believe we do need to be more proactive, less reactionary. But one of the ways we now see that through the culture of union breaking and now the lack of unions in many fucking industries that should have them, that we need more of a mixed economy in this regard. And especially we need to bring back union culture, not to the point where it was in the 70s where, people would kill for the union, but we do need to bring back some union culture and stop demonizing them for crimes of the past, and just analyzing, well, okay, this union was really horrible. Why was it horrible? Why did it break other unions? Why did this union help support other unions, etc.? And actually analyze it critically as opposed to analyzing it from our own lens. I even do that. I have to catch myself from doing it from a leftist perspective often. It's one of the reasons why I love talking to you, Ty, is because you'll bring in the rational right-wing stuff that I actually have to think about, as opposed to the doobies and the Brento boxes who just give me hyperbole.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna bash on either of them. I love them both, but
no, but it's easier to respond to you and think critically about your points as opposed to just have a rhetorical debate with like I do with them.
Right. Yeah. I get you. I do. I really do. So let me split hairs here. Number one, you've made me realize I need a different term outside of maintenance because I'm a firm believer in maintenance. I was raised on a farm, for God's sakes. You got to make sure your shit's working, right? Like, so here's my thing. Like, I don't know how you put this, but I'll put it in this regard. You know, me and the missus has had a lot of hard times paying our bills lately, right? A lot of y'all have helped recently with the new show. Thank you so much, by the way. But there is a point to where I have to have a real chat. And chat, I'm going to get to you guys in a second. There is a real point here where it's like, if you gave me $200, $300, $400 in some kind of aid, right? Would that help me get by? Yes, but it actually doesn't solve my problem. And I have to be 100% honest and open about that, is that number one, it helps me maintain, but it actually doesn't solve my problem that, hey, I need a better wage or a better job or a better, what have you, to allow myself to flourish instead of just, asking for a check. And the other side of that is that I am a fucking massive person on dependency, which is very right-wing talking point, but I think it's real. What happens when I put that into my budget and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, hey, now I need to cut back even more, and I can't because I've become so dependent on these structures. This is why I love my state. Almost every social program we have is temporary. Whether it is TANF or TARP or whatever the few things that we have, is that, you get it for a couple months, but then you're out. And I think that's incredibly...
I disagree with that time frame, but I can agree with the temporary aspect. I would agree more.
Welfare is temporary everywhere.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. That's why I agree more with the economists on this one, that it should be a couple of years rather than a couple of months, because that's not long enough to create an economic dependency on the service, but it is enough to help get you through hard times. I agree that some of these things should be temporary. The difference, I think, in between you and I is I think the system should stay in place. The overall access to the service should be tiered. So, for example, food stamps, housing allowances, things like that. That's the lowest end. That is when you need the absolute most help. As that help starts to push you into a better economic means, then it would be more job security, job placement, things like that. I think we do need to terrace this out and actually do more proactive analysis of our social programs. Because while the social programs are good, that's the one point I do agree with on the right-wingers. If it becomes nearly limitless, it does become a dependency problem. So we need to tier it so that as you need less, you get less, but that what you're getting less is more hyper-focused to what you need.
Are you ready for this? I'm going to make your head spin a little bit. I hate means testing. And I actually think that's the kind of thing that we need to have a real conversation about, is that if we have a social program, you go all in. You don't do this whole thing to where, oh, well, you get it and you get it, but you don't, right? I think it's like, all right, cool.
I was talking like the poverty stuff, the lowest tiers, the stuff that they need the most help. Not that because I think you and I agree that UBI, maybe not the mechanism that people have proposed, would be far better solution, because then it helps everyone, right? Rising tide lifts all boats and all.
I get that. I'm not convinced UBI is going to be that great, but also I just think Americans are horrible at spending their money. I look at their credit card debt and all this shit. I don't think it's going to help.
I agree with you there, but I think it'd be better than the means tested systems that we keep trying to put in place.
It ultimately doesn't matter as long if the resources aren't there for people to buy up. You're just going to end up pricing other people out. The UBI is probably a poor policy in the United States because we don't build enough housing.
Well, that was one of the reasons why I said not in its current form, but in the overall idea. Because the current form of UBI in America is garbage. The one that some of the amendments proposed by people like Booker, funnily enough, were actually better than what the leftists were proposing.
Bonds, the baby bonds are great.
And that's what I'm saying.
Fantastic idea.
Yeah, Cory Booker actually had some great ideas that would have helped some of these that basically got shouted out of the room because it was Cory Booker.
Yeah.
It's baby bonds, and the other one is a guaranteed work, basically that if you can't find a job, the government will provide you one, as opposed to you be
Yeah, you're going to go
the
work at a school kitchen, or you're going to go work as a bus driver. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm
federal
fine with
jobs guarantee is a good idea. I just don't. Ironically, I don't trust them to implement it correctly.
Yeah, like I said, the overall system that they proposed along with that was crap, and that's why I say we need to work on it more. But the idea is good.
Yeah.
So,
For anybody who doesn't know, just really quick, sorry, Tobias. For anybody who doesn't
go
know,
ahead.
the baby bond idea was essentially giving every single child born in the United States $1,000 bond that would grow over time. That would not tap out, but would mature in at their either 18th or 20th birthday. So that would,
But
so they would have something to
the one
start
they agreed on
with.
was 18th, but the
Okay.
one Booker proposed was 21st.
Okay.
And I actually agree with Booker's more, not because of, oh, I don't trust 18-year-olds, although that's part of it. But we can fix that with education. The reason I agreed with 21 is a 21-year bond would have a greater chance of stability and maturing properly to actually meet economic times. Whereas at 18 years, you don't hit that second income bubble or interest bubble that you get with the 20 year. That's the only reason I'm big functioning under capitalism. I have to use the systems within it, and 20 years is better than 18.
Oh God, no. I'll get back to some of that in a second, but just to answer some questions from chat real quick, or at least some comments. Froggy Mano on Twitch, we're talking about if the railroads are good in the United States. I say they are. And your whole thing was, but we don't even have high-speed rail. That's true. High-speed rail is largely unfeasible in the United States, at least any kind of like national system. I think the Acceler Express in the Northeast Corridor needs to be upgraded, and they've had a chat about doing it, but it's probably going to be some fucking ridiculous amount of money. They're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of like $500 billion right now. It's ridiculous.
I didn't see that number. The last number I saw was 50 billion. It's still fucking ridiculous numbers.
Okay, so that's the thing, right? Is that the SoCal track, right, from LA to San Francisco to LA, right? That was supposed to be about $40 billion, and now it's already pushing 120.
That's because of red
well,
tape
no,
and shit.
look,
Like that's a California thing.
Some of it's red tape, but actually, I'm just gonna openly do both the left and the right wing meme thing in regards to that. We're not good at shit we don't fucking do, right? We've
pushed away from railroads for so long. We're not good at it anymore. I agree.
To some degree, yeah. Like the thing is that high speed rail is different than freight rail. The United States has the best freight rail in the world. We do 40% of our goods overall by freight, and it's still probably going to, by volume, go up. The problem that I have been pushing for overall is that we still need to hamper down on getting further with that. As I was talking about earlier, the interstate made it to where trucking outcompetes rail when it comes to time and efficiency. Not in like fuel efficiency, but just in like time and time and reliability. We need interstate rail. And if anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, we need limited access rail to where we literally just, allow, I don't care if it's private companies, I don't give a shit if the US government runs the damn rails. But what we need is that we need rails that are like, hey, look, for this 200 miles from major point to major point, you get on this rail, there is no sidings, there is no turnoffs, and you go 70 miles an hour from point to point. Like that needs to be
suggest higher, but yes, I agree with
getting freight over 70 is really fucking hard because you're going to start eating money. Ironically, you'll shoot yourself in the foot.
That's partially down to aerodynamic design, and we have answers to that are actually pretty cheap. They're basically shells over existing locomotives to create aerodynamic eddy points to make them more air efficient across the rails. But I was just going to say 90 because that's achievable without even doing that modification.
Gentlemen, I gotta take off, but thank you for the wonderful conversation, and talk to you all soon.
Absolutely. Take care, Sam. So yeah, we can get into the details. If you think we can reliably push 90 and still keep our fuel efficiency, within good optimum standards, all right, we can chat about that.
Well, it's because of rail maintenance and car maintenance. If we actually keep up with proper greasing and polishing of the rails to keep them in good working order, 90 is perfectly achievable. They proved that in Florida.
You talking about with Brightline?
Oh no, I was talking with their freight lines. The one that goes through a place called Jensen Beach. it hits 90 through the center of a town. It just only does so between the hours of 12 and 4 a.m. It won't hit that speed during any kind of peak commute hours.
Yeah, actually, you're hitting on exactly on why we need to do expressway rail. Is that a lot of our rail systems still look like the national highway systems. They never got built out to actually do what the interstate does, which is either go around or go through with unlimited interference. And that's the big thing, is that you've got a lot of these rail systems that still go through the middle of some podunk town with 200 people in it, but they have to slow down to 35 miles an hour. And granted, your fuel efficiency is fine at 35 miles an hour. It's actually probably the best. But when it comes down to it, is that you're not getting your goods cheaply and reliably there on time. And that's the thing. We Americans, we will pay the premium to get things there a little bit faster and a little bit more convenient on time.
And I agree. And that's why I just said 90, because it's been proven to be doable with our current rail system just by upping the maintenance cost.
Right. So the other part is that, like, all right, high-speed rail. They need to upgrade Excella. It's the only major profitable line in the entire country, and Amtrak runs it. I'm fine with selling it off, but hey, whatever. I'm curious to see how well Brightline does. I'm really questioning it, but we'll see. I'm interested. There's also a conversation about doing one in Texas, in the Texas Triangle. I don't even think that's actually being built yet.
You have one station being ground cleared, but no rails yet.
No rails yet, but it's cleared legal hurdles. The reason it hadn't been started yet is because farmers sued because it was going to cut through some of their farmland, and it was joined by both the attorney general and the governor, but the Texas courts ruled against them, saying that no, just because they don't have a railroad, they don't have railroads lines yet, doesn't mean they're not a railroad company, so that you can actually use eminent domain to take these tracts of land. So it's going to start.
By the way, funnily enough, the tracts of land were, by comparison of some of our previous rail fucking infrastructure plans, minuscule.
Yeah.
They literally were taking like bare minimum margins on either side of the rail, etc.
And they agreed to provide overpasses or whatever to the farmers so they get to their other track.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So funnily enough, as much as I hate Texas, again, Texas kind of doing it right here for a change.
Well, because the courts forced them to,
but think
I'm
about
excited.
20 years ago, again, we would not have thought that possible from Texas courts. So that's why I actually got into this with somebody who's more of an anarchist. He calls himself a ML fucking anarchist, which whatever the fuck that is.
That is not a thing.
That doesn't exist.
Not a thing, but yeah.
I think that may have
I'm a liberal fascist, Just
because we were being so high end and high strung on this topic. I think I may have put him into a verbal conundrum there, but it's like anarchism can't work. Why? Because it leads to warlordism.
Yes,
plain and simple. What we are doing is incrementalism. No matter if it's to the right or to the left, that incrementalism is what saves us from the horrors of fucking war in our own country. It has always been rapid change that leads to the fucking bloodshed of your neighbors and friends. So with Texas specifically, they're doing it slow. They're doing it regional. Yeah, we had to force them, but the fact that we were able to do that also is something that was unthinkable 20 years ago. That incremental change is even being shown in high red states. A little bit less here in Arkansas because we're like plus 23 red, but like it's happening even in red states. So this incrementalism is working because we are actually using the power of the populace to change their mind on things, to actually be like, hey, why are these people still talking about this 20 years later, yet, we said we did something about it. Wait, they're showing us details that all we did was put a Band-Aid over it and fucking then pave over it so nobody knew the problem was ever there before. These conversations are happening due to this incremental change, due to even older people like my mother now having fucking, YouTubers and Twitch, broadcasters in their normal lexicon. They're being exposed to more ideas. Incrementally, though, never through dramatic change.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if that's actually a good thing, but
go Destiny.
So far,
go Destiny. Get on all the things.
I'm
Oh
less
my God.
the Destiny fan, but
I mean, he's part. I mean, we have to give where credit's due, though. He's the reason.
If that's the case, then we can blame Hassan and Vosh too. So
yes, yeah, no, seriously, like it's they're the big three. They're the reason why people are getting into streaming. So,
well, I don't know if that's the case, but definitely they're the ones that are becoming the household names because they have the audience. And what does America love but a celebrity?
yep.
Got a few
don't
things
care
here.
what that celebrity is either.
Tiberius, just FYI, I have a hard out in about 15-20 minutes because I have to prepare for another show.
That's fine. I actually need to bring Jack into the chat for this because we keep having people not show up. But anyway, a couple things here real quick. Copper Pipe on YouTube. I don't know if you're still here. You haven't made any other posts. So never seen or heard of this game before, but motherfuckers out here deleting Canada. Yes, I've annexed most of Canada. Unfortunately, I'm still trying to take over Quebec and Newfoundland. We'll get to that in a moment. So we were talking about like freight speed and whatever. And
You took over Canada before they created hockey. You're a monster.
Hey, in all fairness, we can still do that.
I'm just giving you shit.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we can still do that. I just gotta go kick Quebec in the pants, and then also, do the same to Newfoundland because Britain decided to let it free. Hey, Osiris is out there. But anyway, what about 65? I assume that was about the conversation that we were having regarding having a bond that would mature. And good God, I fucking hate Social Security. But the long and the short, at least for me right now, is that we need to have a conversation about just having like a mandatory like pay or compensation for like Roth IRAs or or a 401k for no matter what job that you do. I think that has to be on board. I despise Social Security. I think it's a joke. I don't think giving somebody just a bond is going to generate the income that they need to help them out. I think we need to have a real conversation about getting something that actually is, at least for so far, demonstrated, sizable returns. And that's how you do it.
Well, I disagree with the Social Security point, but that's because the Republicans have been attacking Social Security, and fuck them. We paid into that. That's our money. They can go fucking rob somebody else. The pricks.
Not your money.
Yes, yeah, we paid into it specifically.
Yeah, you paid into it for your parents. No, you paid into it for your parents. No, this is the biggest fucking lie, and I hate it, and the Democrats keep pushing it.
No,
you paid into it to pay for your parents.
It doesn't matter.
It's in the wording of the law. No, you're paying into it for yourself.
Oh, that's bullshit. Because then
it ultimately doesn't matter because it's Social Security for old age. So who gives a shit? Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I agree on that as well. But what I was getting at is this is money that is paid into by the populace. That is for the populace that has been being attacked by the government and being robbed by the government for decades, longer than you've been alive, longer than I've been alive, technically.
Yeah, like
thank you, Reagan.
No, not it wasn't Reagan that actually started the robbing of Social Security. He just, again, he was the hyper acceleration point.
Yeah.
He was the one who made it okay. Everybody else was still fighting it up until Reagan was like, hey, we can do this and it will be okay.
We can balance the budget on the backs of old people.
Yeah. And old people voted for him en masse.
In all fairness, if we're having a conversation about fucking over the boomers, I am all on deck. Let's go.
It's not. But Social Security isn't just about old age, though. Social Security and disability.
It's now, because it's now disability and all this other shit. Like, good God.
Now it has been for decades. It's been that way since what? The social.
58.
Was that again?
58 is when they added in disability.
They added in disability.
I thought that was 64 with Johnson's Great Society stuff.
Ooh, I'll have to go check that. Maybe that's when it finally got implemented, but they did pass along 50. I'll have to go look and see when it was actually implemented.
Either way, that's a good thing. We want people to be able to sustain themselves if in the case of disability, either being born disabled or becoming disabled through no fault of their own. Or even if it is their fault, they did something stupid. It doesn't fucking matter.
What are you saying? We can't pick on the cripples? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying the only crips you can pick on are the gang kind. Fuck those guys.
Ha ha, that's funny.
But I mean, that's just the truth of it. Is
this system has been being attacked and undermined for so long that this rhetoric is almost propaganda.
Good, it should be. Like, number
I was
one,
talking about the righty attack propaganda, your points of, oh, that's not your money. No, it actually is. It's actually in the wording of the law that was passed to create Social Security. That's what I'm getting at. Like, we have talked away from the law so much that it is now rhetorical talking points from 50 years ago being regurgitated, not because you don't understand it, but because barely anybody understands it anymore. Like, even our politicians barely understand it anymore, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Even if what you're saying is exactly true, that it's in the wording of the law, I honestly don't give two shits, strictly out of the fact that it's literally a Ponzi scheme made manifest, and it relies on a shitload of young people being able to pay off the livelihoods of old people who are retired. Like, it's a joke.
It doesn't rely on it. Legally speaking, it relies on that. It doesn't have any reliance on it in reality. The reason that it's set up this way is because at the time that it was set up, we were still on the gold standard, and it required money to come from somewhere because they couldn't just manifest it out of thin air. Now that we're on modern money, and I know that you don't like MMT, but that's fine. It's just the way things actually work. Now that we're on this, we can just put it into the general budget and never have to worry about it again, because legally speaking, the government is supposed to be able to cover all of its debts, and that's all this is. This is a debt to old people.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. If right now the law reads wrong, and if we change the wording of the law to include this non-gold standard, variable, it will actually balance itself out. And we've been pushing for that for 10 years, Ty. We have been pushing for that for 10 years and fighting up a titanic battle from the right, because they're like, wait, where's the money going to come from? Because they still think in gold standard.
Well, everybody does, even Bernie Sanders. This is a boomer. This is mainly a boomer problem. I say mainly a boomer problem because they grew up under the gold standard. Of course, they're going to think like this. Like older Gen X people think this way too, but that is slowly going away because people no longer operate under the system.
And we're actually being educated on currency in a way that hasn't been done in 40 years. Because we're learning it through outside teachers rather than internal infrastructure that has been crippled on social and civic responsibility and systematic understanding. We've talked about that. We've crippled our social studies and civics in this country.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I'm not pushing that, or I'm not pushing against that particular part, but I'm like, I think MMT's bullshit. Me and Nate have gone over this. I'm far more with the credit theory of money creation. Is that you're putting money. I'm sorry. Let me not fluster myself a little too much here. There's three general ideas about what money is, and I'm actually going to pull it up from my stuff just so I actually have it all worded right and I don't sound like a fucking moron, because it's been a minute. I literally just did a video on this. I feel bad, but it's been a month. It's been a month.
We go over a lot of shit in a month, so it's understandable.
Yeah. Give me a second here.
You're talking about the credit theory of money, though, like money is generated through banking.
I think so. Give me a second here. Can I pull it up?
Ultimately, I'm a chartalist. I'll let you make your point, but it's not that I'm MMT. It's chartalism for me.
That's for.
It sounds like we have a George Bernard Shaw fan in Thai here.
All right, so here, the three ideas here are the credit issued or credit creation idea, the common exchange theory, which is from the Austrians, and then the state monopoly, right? The state monopoly is like a monopoly on IOUs. It's balanced out by taxation. I don't believe that. I think what it is. I'm from the credit creation theory, which is currency is loaned into existence. We balance this out with treasury notes, and basically the way that you keep runaway inflation from usually happening is that you actually can show, hey, look, for every amount of value that we have put into the system, reflected within currency, is there something actually there to balance it out and show that the value isn't just literally a holdover. That's firmly actually what I do believe, is that MMT just kind of is just like, hey, as long as the state has a vested interest in showing that it can metabolize its IOUs, no one gives a fuck. I think that's moronic as shit.
But the credit theory goes along with MMT to a degree. It just matters.
They overlap to some degree. I'm not going to act like they don't.
I don't see how that's contradictory. I would have to look up more about the thing you're talking about.
So the thing about MMT that I think that where they can go to hell is that they treat it as long as that the United States government can basically can leverage the IOUs, they're fine. And what I mean by leverage is that they can basically just make sure that they're holding up a good standing to, I won't even say creditors. Like it's weird. Like it gets to a point where it actually just kind of comes off the ground for me. But I'll put it in this regard. As long as the United States for the social credit, for the credit system, as long as they can actually pay the people back, you're within good standing, right? If somebody makes a call or somebody goes in to cash in their T-bills early, you're fine. When it comes to MMT, at least in my general synopsis here, is that if somebody comes in with their IOU and redeems it, whether the United States can actually redeem it or not really isn't important because it's the final authority when it comes to the IOU.
No, so this is where the overlap is, and that's why I don't understand how you see that they're at conflict here. The United States would just, if a person came in with an IOU dominated in US dollars for the US government, the US government can literally just create the dollars to fulfill that IOU. And as long as the productive capacity is within the country or globally speaking to suck up any excess money that generates from somebody redeeming that IOU, then it won't lead into inflation. If it doesn't, then you have inflation. Inflation is the result of too few goods of services being in the system for the demand that is in the system. The amount of money in the system doesn't matter. It's just those two.
Yeah, fuck that bullshit.
No, it matters. It matters, but it doesn't. Ultimately, doesn't matter. So if you have a bunch of people, this is why.
Get a whiteboard. You're gonna get a whiteboard and do the math.
Okay, if you want to get a whiteboard, go for it.
No, we can.
Demand side inflation is a real thing. It's more often
No, I wasn't saying it wasn't, but I was going to say.
No, I know you were. I'm agreeing with you on that part. Like demand side inflation is real. Like the majority of inflation that we have seen during COVID has been demand side inflation. What I don't agree with is that it's completely that, and moreover,
supply matters.
Yeah, supply matters. Okay, cool. Then we're on the same page. I don't know why we're talking past each other.
Well, what I'm saying is
the point is the variable you keep including that the math has been showing is less and less of a actual key variable is the monetary input into the system. It is all about the supply and demand.
It's all about the supply and demand. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much. The dollars are just the reflection of that in real time. That's all it is. So it just means, hey, we have, if you have prices suddenly collapse tomorrow, that doesn't necessarily mean that the monetary supply suddenly collapsed, that the credit market suddenly collapsed. It just means that there likely is less demand or a fuck ton more of goods meeting that demand. That's the side of the equation that matters. It's the demand side and supply side. The amount of money in there just reflects what those two variables intersect as.
Yeah, it becomes the lens to evaluate through as opposed to a variable to consider as constant and change.
Yep. And the reason that Milton Friedman is wrong is because he made a proof that couldn't be disproven. It was self-proving. It was because the math just always worked out to equal 1. And that's just not how it works. It can't always equal out to 1 because there's other variables that have to be taken into account. So.
He forgot to include the confounding variables. And that's why his system, that's why I joke that you were a Shaw fan, because you pushed into Shaw's answer to Friedman's mistake, essentially, in your answer. And that's the thing. We have learned mathematically that regardless of what our currency standard is, or regardless of monetary input into the system, it always breaks down specifically to supply and demand until very recently. And they actually did this great fucking presentation on the floor of the House, where one of the representatives was sitting there with an infographic going, okay, Mr. Corporate Man, let's go over the data here and let's show where this increase in cost is coming from. And 53.9% is coming from direct corporate profit. Nothing to do with supply, nothing to do with demand. It is pure wealth extraction.
Yep. I will have to watch that. Can you? Do you know? Was it
Yeah,
Katie? Was it Katie Porter?
It was.
Of course, it was.
The law
I mean,
professor has to bring out the infographics to school the dumb fucks. Yes,
she's really she's really good when it comes to stuff like that. Like even optically, even if you don't agree with her politics, you have to admit that she's pretty effective.
Beautifully rhetorically, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm getting at. Like she does a great demonstration of this, and she also puts all the numbers up, like in the website, like the transcripts and all that. There's all like the studies she's using to show all this stuff too, and that's what I'm getting at is we are seeing now that our cost in America and Canada, more specifically because of the way our trade agreement is being driven specifically by corporate profit, not cost of labor, not cost of distribution, not manpower cost, none of that. It is pure corporate profit, 53.9%.
Yeah, I'm outright calling bullshit on that. I fucking hate Katie Porter. I think she's a lying sack of shit. We keep going. No, seriously, we keep coming into the data on this one, and like I think the rights actually pulled this one down. They're like, oh, they keep pulling out the corporate data, and there was somebody who did a thing on this one not too long ago. They're like, they completely dispelled it. I wish I could actually pull up the video here.
If you pull up the video, I'll go through their talking points and show you where they're wrong, because I've gone through the math. She's rhetorically beautiful. I go through her math because math doesn't lie, and her math doesn't lie. That's what I'm getting at. She is saying what the math is saying.
Inflation can drive corporate profits up. We have to acknowledge that, because their cost doesn't always increase directly one-to-one with the amount of goods and services. And the reason why we have to point that out is because they have fixed cost year over year based on the amount of salary they agreed to pay people. So that if their other costs go up and then they do anything to adjust for those, then potentially their profits will exceed the cost simply because of how that worked out. But record corporate profits and record high inflation don't necessarily have to go hand in hand, and that's the problem. They could have taken a cut in their profit margins, or they could have just kept
follow the more Japanese. Follow the more Japanese corporatocracy model, where if you are the CEO or the chief officers of a company, you will not take pay until the company gets profitable again. You literally won't take your salary because you can survive the hit to your income because you have been making so much for so long. They don't cut thousands of jobs like we do here. The corporate elite say, okay, we're just not going to take pay because we don't need it. And I'd rather my company succeed than have a bigger wallet.
Yeah. And that's a problem with our entire corporate CEO infrastructure, is that they pretty much go every 2 years to a different company. And there's no incentive not to. They come in, either fix something and then get praised for it and be like, all right, guys, I'm taking my golden parachute, deuces. Or they break stuff and say, well, I'm getting fired, give me my corporate parachute, I'll go somewhere else, deuces. And there's no incentive to not do that. And that's our primary problem. It's too short-termism rather than having any loyalty to anything, whether it be the company, the workers, the country, whatever. That's the primary problem. Everything can be traced back down
to the wallet.
Yeah, everything can be traced back. Almost every problem within business currently can be pointed back to, honestly, Milton Friedman, but also short-termism and quarterly earnings. And the quarterly earnings report is because of investors following Milton Friedman's model and wanting to understand how much money they're making every time. So it all comes back to him, but it's not necessarily just his fault.
Which is why I use the hyperbolic line must go up.
Yep.
Because that's the thing. They if you're not showing profit, if you were even showing just consistent profit, rather than growing profit, you were considered a failure. And I'm sorry, if you're a $10 million a year company and you make $10 million the next year and $10 million the year after that, that's not a failure.
But it is. It is if you're leveraging your entire company in order to get either buybacks or something else, and you have to pay that debt. And if you're not growing beyond the debt, then you can't pay it off, and the line must go up in order to remain solvent. So then again, it comes all the way back to everything.
I mean, it's why I use that very hyperbolic but very succinct point that you can't really argue against, because it is that mentality in the U.S. and Canada Now, it's everywhere in the world to a point, but specifically in North America, due to our trade agreements, where this just keeps happening. And I will trace it back to the 90s more specifically, because this was less possible before the repeal of Glass-Steagall.
True. I'll say that too. Yeah, we need.
So if we could put
Glass-Steagall
Glass-Steagall back in place, or something similar, new that kind of eliminates the pitfalls of Glass-Steagall, to prevent this type of vulture capitalism and wealth extraction that we're describing, I could even be on board with capitalism dominant hybrid economy.
Hell yeah. Me and Jack are on the same page here. I love it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not a capitalist. I'm not a capitalist. But if we can put the right safeguards, but if we can put the right safeguards in place to prevent the vulture capitalism that we have been seeing since the 90s, that is something I can get behind, because we were seeing prosperity to the point where our poverty line was not changing dramatically where we set the line, but the number of people under it were changing dramatically. We had housing going up before the corporatocracy of buying up every single family residence and turning it into a single family rental.
That should be illegal. That there's a potential that should be illegal. Honestly,
I agree, but that's for other reasons and a much longer conversation.
Yeah, we're not going to get into it, but 20% of a market should not be dominated by investors. I'm sorry.
30%. It's 30%.
Is it 30% now?
Last year. It's 30% as of the $1 trillion that BlackRock spent in 2021, put it up to 30%.
So okay, so let's have some clarity. So it's in certain markets that they're buying up that amount. Overall, though, the housing stock supply that is owned by quote unquote investors, which is anybody according to Redfin that is listed as an LLC or LLP and up. So if you're one of those and up in the corporate structure, they list you as an investment owning property, an investor owning a property. They said around 2% of the market was still owned. So it went up a lot, that 1% to 2%. But
no, I'll have to look at that, because what I was looking at was see, we're not talking condos, we're not talking multi-family residences like duplexes and shit like
they
that.
might have included everything in that number.
See, and if they did, that number is slightly disingenuous, because this is a specific problem in one particular issue, which is home ownership, which they are buying up vast tracts of homes and letting them sit fallow, because they actually have tax incentives to let them sit without residences, over filling them with somebody that pays less, than the mortgage.
We need a Pigoy or Pigoat, whatever, how you pronounce his name, tax. We need those taxes, externality taxes, vacancy taxes, land value added taxes,
etc. Guys, I love you all, but I've heard enough left-wing talking points for a couple hours. Y'all
that's not, no. The externalities tax is a capitalist thing.
Yep.
No. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm literally just hearing words at this point, and nothing's fucking computing anymore.
Okay, fair enough.
But actually, externalities taxes and externality subsidies, I'm 100% for. I think y'all have heard me on this one. I want the sugar tax. I want to fucking dismantle fucking. What?
Let me get diabetes. I'm just kidding. It's a me thing. I get it. Okay. I'm not against it. I just really love my soda.
Dude, look, for real. I'm addicted, right? I am fucking addicted. I drink at least 2 a day, right? Goddamn. But on the other side of that, I know that is why this fucking thing's starting to develop even bigger and bigger, especially as I get a little, No? All right, whatever. But anyway,
dad bod.
She's saying I'm just not as active as I need to be, which is probably a little true as well.
Yeah, we consider this active because we are tired by getting done yelling at each other. It is still sedentary.
Yeah,
a little bit. No, I've been trying to be active outside when I can. I'm working on my backyard, trying to tear it up because I'm pretty sure there used to be a driveway back there, and so it's really good river black dirt, black river sand, right? But it's mixed in with gravel, and I'm trying to grow some grass out of it. So I'm literally digging it all up and sifting all the fucking dirt, and it's working. But then somebody named Changebox got the pickaxe off my wish list, and so I could break through the bottom layer of rock, and now I can get down to where the rock ends, and so I'm really now able to sift it. Problem one is that Instead of digging down like 2 to 4 inches, we're now digging down a good 8 inches, right? And there's a lot of work there, particularly when you're swinging a big fucking pickaxe. Problem 2 is we found out about 4 inches under some of this stuff, there's a giant concrete slab in my backyard that I've got to figure out where that damn thing is and like where it stops and where it ends. And so I've got a pile in the backyard now that I have dug with a shovel that is now as tall as me. It is taller than my damn fence. So, like, I'm just like...
Okay,
fuck.
2 things. One, you're killing yourself with the pickaxe. The pickaxe is to break it apart.
No. I know. Like, I use it to break it apart because it's just horrible.
Yeah, but it needs to be used more like a lever than a impactor.
Yeah.
Because you want to chunk out bigger clumps because that will save you a lot of... It doesn't seem like it because you're lifting heavier loads per load because you're lifting big chunks, but it is actually less work overall. Funny enough, I learned this from somebody who went and tried to become a gold miner and failed horribly. But he was like, yeah, man, chunking it out bigger makes the work a hell of a lot easier. Even though you're doing more work, it's technically explosive work because it's lift drop. And then it shakes it. You sit there and shake for a couple of minutes, which is pretty low tier exercise to your muscles. And that's all I'm getting at. Is like, yeah, use it more like a pry bar, where it basically snap in and then you lift to break out bigger chunks. It will save you a lot of work, my friend. A lot of work.
No, I'm largely doing something of that line, but it's just really hard. But go ahead.
I'm just saying, I gotta go to the restroom, and then my next show is in like 10 minutes. So,
always fun talking to you.
What's the next show?
I'm talking to F-bombs about free speech. I don't know how it's gonna go, but he's not a right winger, so it should be all right.
I think F-bombs is a little bit more free speech absolutist lefty, but yeah, he's a cool dude. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, I was on his improv show doing my best Mitch McConnell impression, and I kept it up for an hour, so it was a good time.
Yeah, F-bombs is fun.
Everybody, thanks Tiberius for having me on. I do got to get going for the next show though. Appreciate you.
Bamoosh, you varmint.
Bye everybody. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Good one.